Humans are emotional creatures with the ability to think logically, not the other way around. So it's really crucial that you ask questions and let them sit in the pain a bit so that they can understand the long-term consequences if they don't make a change. It's all about asking great questions to reveal the need, to reveal the pain points, to reveal the cost of if something doesn't change, then the long-term consequence, well, it's not going to be pretty. Pressure release statement sounds something like this. Hey, if this looks like a great fit for you, then buy it. I'll show you how to get it and we'll move forward. And if it's not a fit, just say no. Just tell me no, thank you. And I'll point you in the right direction of someone who can help you. The goal of the outbound is simply to get an appointment. That's the first sale. The first sale is that someone is going to give you their undivided attention so that you can have that quality discussion to determine whether or not it's a good fit or need. So the outbound, your sale is to make the appointment. That appointment is where the discovery happens. That are you really a good match for this? Retaining a big team. I once heard the phrase that people don't leave companies, people leave people. I call it the conviction compass that helped me remain perseverant and consistent through all of the challenges associated with being rejected to your face that often. But the seed of a good outbound is that you speak to the need. You want to show up to every sales call ready to help. Show up to every single sales call asking, how can I help you?
Let's get started. I guess you have this amazing profile, and just tell us about yourself.
Tell you about myself. I guess very Cliff Note version. I'm from Hawaii, so I was born and raised in Hawaii, and today I live in Johannesburg, South Africa. I have a pretty extensive background in sales, where I began doing sales, early on in my life. I was 15 and a half, 16 years old when I began any sort of sales thing that was retail. But really where a lot of my sales expertise comes from is my door-to-door experience. So I did door-to-door sales for about 6 years, and I knocked on over 30,000 cold doors in 6 different cities and states across the US, all cold markets, places I'd never been to before. And intermittently, after I had my sales season, I would recruit college students during my school year. So as a college student, I then taught other students how to become effective in sales. So I did that over the course of 6-7 years and recruited a giant team. I had right around 60 people in my organization. And then at 26, I got invited to become a consultant. And so I've been a business coach, an international sales trainer and speaker now since right around 27. So this is going on 7 years. So that catches you up pretty much with my professional side.
Oh, wow, awesome. So tell me more about this 30,000 doors and what were you selling and how was that experience like?
Yeah, that was the hardest thing I'd ever willingly put myself through. And I was selling books door to door. Believe it or not, I know we live in an internet age, in the information internet age, and I was selling educational resources to help students with their ABCs and 1, 2, 3s all the way up through their collegiate ACTs, SATs, and prep work and advanced studies. So that was sort of what I was selling.
Okay, so I mean that would actually require a lot of resilience. So how would you go about your day going through all of those and managing all of them?
Yeah, it's funny you ask that because I just gave a talk on this. Over the last 2 days, I've been invited into some companies here to share that experience. And there were a few things, I call it the conviction compass, that helped me remain perseverant and consistent through all of the challenges associated with being rejected to your face that often. I would say there are a few different components of the conviction compass. So one is having something that recharges me or fills me up, whether it's God or prayer or meditation, or listening to a motivational video. So for instance, I listened to more recently, I listened to one every morning by Matthew McConaughey for 10 minutes. So it's just to get a bit of a refuel, right? Because we cannot give from an empty cup. So that's one part of how I maintained consistency, is making sure I was always filling my cup with something positive in the morning. Something else is I would dedicate my days. So what I mean by that is my stepfather, I love him so much. And when I was young, he had an aneurysm. And unfortunately, what that means is he doesn't have our opportunity to evolve or to grow or to set long-term goals and pursue them. And so, you know, thinking about him gave me, one, a lot of perspective, but two, it gave me a purpose. And so I would write his hand on my hand right here, write his name on my hand, and I would knock on doors, and I would just think to myself, you know, I know if he had an opportunity like this, that he would take it. So those are just a couple ways, a couple things that I would do in order to stay consistent, is fill my cup, dedicate my day. And then the final thing is I would remember that sales is not actually about me or my results. Sales at the end of the day is always about how can I help the other person, the person sitting on the other side of the table. And so maintaining that perspective of how can I help, every person I met is, hey, I'm just here to help. I really feel like enhanced the engagement, so that one, the rejection wasn't as bad, but two, my perspective was so anchored in something that was not egocentric. It wasn't selfish, right? I was so focused on how can I add value to the world? How can I give? So those are a few things that I did to help me knock on 30,000 doors and conduct over 150,000 outbounds recruiting. So.
Oh, wow. So tell me more about that journey. So you've done this part, and then obviously you sort of like transitioned into this role. Now I think you're traveling across the globe, you're living in different countries, and so maybe it's this that was your dream, and this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I can tell you with 1,000% certainty, Saad, that I am in a really beautiful season where everything I've ever wanted in my life, this lifestyle of being able to globetrot and being able to speak to people and add value and help them hit their goals. Yeah, I am in a very sweet season of experiencing everything I've wanted. So, or a lot of what I wanted, I could say.
Okay. So you're like one of the top producers and one of those top emerging producers. So what are some of the important skills that are needed to see that kind of explosive growth?
To see that explosive growth.
Yeah.
To see that explosive growth, well, I'd say maybe not so much a skill. We can transition into skills, but I'd say the biggest thing is having a passion for your own self-development. So they say I think Jim Rohn, he would say that it's more important to focus on how you can grow yourself more than you grow at your job. And so I would say before any skills comes the habit and the practice of investing in yourself. So a lot of self-study and reading personal development books, because you could have all the skills in the world, but unless this is right, the 4 inches between your ears are right and in a place where you're like, okay, I'm going to apply what I learned, like it's not useful whatsoever. Now with skills, like if I were a salesperson and if I was coaching a salesperson and working on the technical aspect of how to grow your sales quickly, a couple things come to mind. The first thing is your ability to ask great questions. So discovery, or in my, I like to call it my authentic influence sales cycle, or so selling cycle. That's my curriculum, is the authentic influence selling cycle. That step is called reveal. And it's all about asking great questions to reveal the need, to reveal the pain points, to reveal the cost of if something doesn't change, then the long-term consequence, well, it's not going to be pretty, right? So I'd say that's the first skill technically any salesperson really needs to master, is asking great questions. bringing someone to a decision, closing, going for the sale. And then the third, I would say, would be referral gathering. How do you get introduced to the next lead, the next person that you can help? Because prospecting is the hardest part of the selling cycle. There's so much rejection there. And if you can mitigate the amount of rejection you're enduring, then I really believe that you're able to execute and be more consistent. So,
Okay. And so you build like big teams, okay? And what is your secret of building those teams and obviously then retaining those top talent?
yeah. So the secret to building a bigger team, it really is all about the outbound. There's no substitute for getting on the phone. There's no substitute for reaching out to people whatsoever. There's just no substitute for that. So that was a big contributing factor, is the amount of time and the quantity, right? Just like any athlete going to the gym every morning, running that mile. If you're going to run a marathon, right, you need to put in the work. So that's the first bit with regards to building a big team. Retaining a big team. I once heard the phrase that people don't leave companies, people leave people. So I was really fortunate in that I found wonderful people, and mind you, I'm not perfect whatsoever. I've certainly made a lot of mistakes, but I think that I really always cared for people, truly and deeply and sincerely. I cared about their goals. I cared about what is it that was happening in their own personal life that could impact their performance, as well as what is it that they wanted to accomplish personally and professionally. What are their dreams, and how is working with me helping them step closer towards that? And I think by locking in on those things and maintaining actions that align with those values and principles contributed to maintaining great relationships and being able to lead a team effectively.
Okay, and there are quite a few. I mean, there's a lot of like negative connotation attached with sales and some of the tactics that are involved there. So, what are some of the misconceptions about these sales tactics, and how do you sort of like address those?
Yeah, well, as we all know, most salespeople haven't been taught proper sales techniques.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fault. I don't fault. I'll rewind. I don't fault people for not understanding true sales psychology. The negative stereotypes attached to sales are often pressure-oriented, manipulative, deceitful, self-seeking, right? It goes back to those themes of the salesperson is more concerned about their own commissions and their own results over that of the prospect or the client. So that's the underlying principle, right? And how it shows up is through those pressure-oriented techniques. How I combat that is in my Authentic Influence Selling Cycle curriculum. There is a step that is never taught in sales, but I teach it. And I personally believe that this step contributed to growing my sales from one year to the next by over 50%. And it's the pressure release statement. And that pressure release statement sounds something like this. Hey, if this looks like a great fit for you, then buy it. I'll show you how to get it and we'll move forward. And if it's not a fit, just say no. Just tell me no, thank you. And I'll point you in the right direction of someone who can help you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, really. Yeah. And by taking the pressure off of them, I oftentimes found that they were more receptive and more sincere about considering what you had to offer as a legitimate solution and as something, okay, like I would be open-minded to moving forward with them because they no longer felt obligated to buy from you, right? So
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you have this LinkedIn course, 3 steps to the perfect pitch, and obviously it's really praised a lot. Can you sort of give us some of the key strategies you teach in the course and how that can transform sales for other people or companies?
sure. So giving you sort of how I created the course and all of that.
Yeah, so that and also what are some of the key elements or teachings that you want to share it with the audience? Yeah.
Sure. So I was really fortunate to partner with a company called Madecraft out in Santa Barbara. And I was paired with a scriptwriter who walked me through exactly a framework to help me make sure that I was bringing great material to my audience. And that really, the first thing we had to ask ourselves is, what is the pain point of the people who I'm going to be making this for? And so that was the seed, the foundation. And essentially, I would say that keeping the videos really concise and short. So just to give you the technical aspect of it, that because according to studies, our attention span lasts only 8.25 seconds. So keeping it really short, especially in today's world with all the information coming at us, because it's more bite size, right? So that there was an element of strategy there. And then the biggest teachings with the course, I would say the through line, the message across all of it is that you want to show up to every sales call ready to help. Show up to every single sales call asking, how can I help you? The biggest teachings there that support that, one of them is the pressure release. And another part of it was asking great questions and how to set up the pitch. We talk about how to ask about the pain points and have the other person share their experience and what could happen and talk about it. Because if you as a salesperson are speaking, then you are selling. However, if you get them, your prospect or client, to share their pain points, then they're selling themselves. So having great questions that get them to talk about the pain is crucial. And the last part I'll leave with that is it's important to let them sit in the pain, because most mediocre, average, or not so seasoned salespeople, their initial knee-jerk reaction is to pounce. If there's pain, they're like, well, let me solve it for you right away. But that's not the way to do it. Humans are emotional creatures with the ability to think logically, not the other way around. So it's really crucial that you ask questions and let them sit in the pain a bit so that they can understand the long-term consequences if they don't make a change. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Can you hear me properly? Sorry, I think there's some bit of disruption.
It's okay.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So let's just talk about an outbound sales process. So you have a list, and then you start off the list. There's a cold outreach. Do you have any recommendations for approaching somebody cold out in terms very cold, and what channels and tactics do you think will work over there?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. And frankly, that deserves what you would need to look at is you need to look at your avatar. So before you even conduct an outbound, I spend time looking closely at the psychographics of the person I'm reaching out to. There's a step before the outreach step where I call it prioritizing or qualifying. And essentially, I look for a few different things. I try to, that at least, is I try to look for mutual connections. Like, is there anyone on LinkedIn who I know that they know? And I really do try to do some of that preemptive work by getting an introduction or a referral to them. If they are younger, if they're, let's say, my demographic, right? Like, let's say millennials or a little bit younger, what I understand about that particular avatar or that person is they're constantly on the phone. They need information quickly, and infographics and like tight, aesthetically pleasing visuals are important. And so I would play with a few different things, let's say with a younger audience, where I would connect via email and text messaging and then a phone call, because more people are apt to see those things and react to those things if they're in that audience. So to go back to that question, it really, part of being an effective outbounder, someone who's conducting, outreaches or prospecting, is you need to have a really good understanding of your audience ahead of time. In the outbound itself, let's say I'm reaching out and let's say I have no information on this person whatsoever. What I'm trying to help them get to is the pain point I'm solving. So asking them, hey, one of the things I do is I help with. And then, so for instance, when I'm reaching out to companies or organizations about my services, I share with them that the reason people hire me is because they want to help their sales teams grow their results. They want to see their sales teams, hit their growth, hit their sales targets, or exceed them. So I speak to the pain point. I speak to the benefit that they want to see, more than anything else. So I'll pause there. That was a lot. There's so many different ways to approach that question, because there are a lot more components to it than just conducting an outbound, right? But the seed of a good outbound is that you speak to the need. So.
Okay. And in terms of, so you've done some personalization, you've connected with them, and now you've talked about the pain point. But let's just go deeper into how do you identify the pain points? Like, what other ways can people use to really understand if this is the right person, or maybe this is the right person at the right time?
Yeah, it's really difficult to unpack all of that in a single outbound.
Okay.
It's really, I think a big mistake people who are new to sales or haven't had a lot of experience in it, is a common mistake people will make is trying to make the sale right then and there on the phone in the first contact. That's frankly not the goal of the first outbound. The goal of the outbound is simply to get an appointment. That's the first sale. The first sale is that someone is going to give you their undivided attention so that you can have that quality discussion to determine whether or not it's a good fit or need. So the outbound, your sale is to make the appointment. That appointment is where the discovery happens. That are you really a good match for this? You can determine whether someone's is the decision maker by just asking them on the phone, on the outbound. That could prevent the objection, but really the sale isn't made during the outreach. I really try to create the space for someone to say, okay, let's take some time to have a conversation about this product, service, and your pain points.
Okay, and in terms of cadence for the outreach, so do you have any sort of mechanisms? Okay, so after this many days, or this channel versus this channel, what's your sort of like best way of getting the prospect interested?
Yeah. So what are the cadences I have in place?
Yeah.
There are so many different kinds of cadences. And here's the thing, I'll just tell you right off the bat that there is no such thing as a perfect cadence. There's just no such thing. You either speak to their need or you don't, and you do it enough times that they see, okay, this is going to help me, right? And again, it goes back to who is my avatar. If I'm trying to reach out to someone who's over the age of 60, right? The channels would be different. I would be doing direct mailers. I would maybe wanting to do advertisements on the television, because I understand that that's where they're oftentimes spending their time, versus who maybe someone who is a father of 3 little kids who is out running around all the time. He probably needs a phone call, right? And so there's an element of a few emails are a great place to warm up. Text messages, I think, are a great place to warm up, but you don't want to go more than, I'd say, 3 or 4 days without a touch.
Okay. And when do you sort of like say, okay, this is over?
This is over?
After how many touches you sort of like figure it out, okay, this is not going to work?
Yeah, I'd say between 5 or 7 of proactive outreach. And then after the 5th or 7th time or so, somewhere between that, then I put them into an automated sequence where they're still getting value adds. Because the point of your cadences, not every touch is designed to convert, but every touch counts. And so ideally, what every person ought to be doing is, with every single touch, is to add value in some way, shape, or form. And not every touch is supposed to be a, hey, are you ready to buy right now? Some of it is, hey, I just want to ask, are there any questions that you have? Or, hey, I just wanted to check in on you. Or, hey, I saw this article that related to a topic, I think you would really appreciate. Let me send this over. Or here's a fun motivational video. Here's a puppy image. Like, it's not every touch should be a sales call. I truly believe that every touch should be there to build a relationship with your audience, because when that level of trust grows and they become familiar, and they're, it's not about just getting them right then and there, because sometimes it's timing, right? So you're setting yourself for the not yets and the people who are saying, oh, now is the time. So 5 to 7 proactive touches, no response, not getting any bites, no worries. Okay, automated sequence, build relationship, check in with them maybe once every 3 months, once every 6 months, and see if there's anything they need at that point.
Okay, awesome. But how do you stand out? Because everybody is right now being surrounded by this LinkedIn, phone calls, SMS, and all that. So, given all of this is happening, how do you capture attention? How do you stand out at this point?
That is a great question. In a world filled with everyone and their mom being given a microphone on social media and all of that, it really like what separates you from everyone else is how clear your message is. How clear is your message? If you're really clear with your message and you're clear about who it is that you need to serve, then the noise will fall away. So I think the biggest mistake here is oftentimes people are taking a shotgun approach. There's an element of you want to shoot to the masses, you want to get your message out there, but we need to remember that not every person is your ideal target audience. I don't know, but I know for me, that's not the case, right? There are some people who I'm just not going to be a fit for, and that's okay. It's really about standing out to the people you were meant to serve, to the people you're supposed to help. And I think that is where you will stand out, is when you get clear on your message and you get clear on who you're serving and the language that they are using to explain their problem in their head to themselves.
Okay, that's awesome. So in terms of, so you have a sales team, and that sales team is pretty much after the prospecting. What KPIs and numbers you will track on a daily, weekly basis? What are your favorite ones?
Yeah, I have a whole goal card. I actually keep track of it. I still do. I do a little bit of paper. That's like my way of staying focused, and then I'll plug them in. But a few things I keep track of whenever I'm conducting outbounds are how many dials I make, how many voice messages I leave, because if people are calling me back, then I know that my voice messages are working, right? So it helps me gauge whether how effective I am in leaving a voicemail. I customized emails. So another thing you mentioned, how do you stand out from all the noise? I do take extra time to make sure I curate personalized emails that speak directly, because in an email, people want to see that you are speaking to them and them only, not to the masses. If you can show me that you know me in an email, then you can win them over, because they definitely feel like it's written specifically for them. So customized emails I'll track, reaches to decision makers, appointments that I set, and then of course discovery meetings, any firm holds, all of that. So those are just a few of the KPIs with regards to prospecting that I will keep track of.
Okay, and in terms of tools, do you have any favorites that you use, or is it like an Excel based, or what's your sort of like best recommendation to start off the process?
Yeah, I've really used Excel. I've used other programs in the past, but there's something frankly just really simple about Excel. And then of course I'll use, so the CRMs I use are Infusionsoft, or I think they're also known as Keep. So Infusionsoft I really love. I feel like they do really optimal reporting and a great job with regards to organizing leads. Active Campaign is another CRM that I'll use. But yeah, with regards to tracking, I keep it also on the side, because if I have two, it helps me to sort of compare and contrast. Sometimes there might be an error in either. So it's good to have two.
Okay, and also for sales guys, picking up the phone call is like maybe the hardest thing in the world.
Yes.
So that confidence and that courage, how do you sort of like train people to overcome that particular fear?
Mastering the first dial. I'm building a curriculum on this right now of how do you master the first dial, because it's truly sad. It's the first call that's the hardest. It's the first door that you knock on. It's the hardest. It's the first, the first push up, the first the first sprint that you do, it's always the first one that's the hardest, but after the first one, that momentum is on your side. And so how do I help people do this? I literally tell them, I say, go and pick up your phone, put in the number, and before you're ready, just hit send. Like, don't even think about it, just click it, just go, just hit it. Because action cures fear. And while there is a luxury in waiting for us to feel better before we take action, the world doesn't wait for that. So there's an element of do it scared, do it nervous, do it before you feel ready. And if you mess up a little bit, which I totally have, you just laugh about it. And so that would be, if there's anything, how do you master the first dial? You just move through the fear. You just take action in this angst, in the emotion. So.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. And obviously, sales is a game of rejections, right? Those are how many rejections that you can handle, but still, it takes a toll. So, what are your tips over there?
On overcoming rejection, yeah. Gosh, so what I have told people, I told this to a group of financial advisors yesterday, is that the reward is in the rejection, and that the yeses will pay for my bills right here and right now, just as my yeses paid for my bills back then. But it's the no's that have paid dividends. It is the no's that have got me to sit on this call with you today. It's not because of all the yeses, it's because of that, the character building. And so realizing that the rejection is the reward. Like, this is where you build your character. This is where you become humbled. This is where you face your flaws and you're given an opportunity to grow. Rejection, I personally believe, helps us become better people. It helps us learn to manage the voice in our own head that says, we can't do this, we can't do that. And it gives you the opportunity to say, no, I know this hurts, but I can keep going. I can go to the next person, right? So there's so much self-growth packed into rejection. I think it's so healthy to face it.
Okay, and in terms of any startup who's actually just building the sort of like sales team, what advice would you give? What kind of people they should hire? Specialist, generalist? What are the best way of hiring those?
Barbara Corcoran once said, the best people that you can hire is someone with something to prove, because oftentimes they are driven by something more than just profit. That's going to help them succeed. There's a bigger picture that they're looking at, and you want people who have that long-term vision, who understand the pain of the short-term pain will lead to long-term gain. So more than any technical skill, I love to look for people who have a fire, a drive, a purpose for more than just working at a company. It's like, what are your goals, and how do you see this organization helping you get there? With regards to technical skills, honestly, that the work, like a great work ethic will trump anything, because if they have a good work ethic and are willing to study, like when they have a good work ethic, they are willing to do the things to study, to get better, to enhance their skills, to persevere, to problem solve. So I think more than anything else, yeah, you can look at all the technical things. And I think the technical roles, that really depends on the industry that you're in, and maybe I'd say the industry that you're in to help with that. But I'm mostly looking for people who are excited to work and who are ready to work.
Okay. So obviously you built your courses, and let's just talk about something about those. So how do you build that awareness, that whole pipeline, in terms of this is the awareness, now people are considering buying it, not they're buying it. So how do you sort of like go about all of that process?
Go about buying in and creating the whole outline of well, it goes back to, what is the problem that I'm solving for people? And then I asked, how did I solve that problem for myself? And so all I did was reverse engineer how I got to where I'm at today and all the steps it took to get there. So that's sort of the recipe. Is I had to ask myself, what was my starting point? And the starting point is oftentimes where your prospects are at. and where do they want to go, which is where I'm at today, and what were the steps I had to take in between there. So that was how I comprised my outline in what to teach. And of course, you include things like stories, you include a hook, you include things that catch people's attention, because humans, as I mentioned earlier, have a very short attention span. So
Yeah.
that's how I was able to deconstruct my course.
Yeah. So in terms of marketing it, in terms of choosing the right channel, and in terms of promoting it, so what tactics have you used and that have like really delivered value for you?
Right. Again, I would circle back to, where does my ideal prospect hang out in? Like, where are my perfect prospects? And the people who I've really enjoyed working with are oftentimes, they're professionals, right? So mortgage, real estate, tech, and financial advisors. And most of them, they're not on, I mean, while they all have Facebook accounts and Instagram accounts and X threads or all of that, where they're really spending their time is on LinkedIn. And so it was such a strategic and a bit of luck, right, that I was able to get my course into LinkedIn, where I knew a lot of those, fish, so to speak, were swimming in. Like, I knew, okay, this is the pond where all the fish I want to catch are there. So why would I bother like focusing all on so many others, right? So it's about being really intentional, more than massive. Does that make sense? So rather than casting a big net, I am focused on where are my fish at? Where are they at? And wherever they're swimming, I want to go there, and I want to feed that pond. So
And for that, there's a top of mind awareness that you're doing a lot of podcasts, and then this is how you sort of like growing the awareness, or
yeah. And so getting a chance. So the other bit I think that's helped me with growing my course is also going back to growing myself. So attending personal development seminars, attending, for instance, I work with Brand Builders Group. And so getting a chance to work with other entrepreneurs and other people who are course creators and authors and speakers, where I'm sharpening my saw. Oftentimes they have people in their own network who would appreciate the training that I provide, because they're offering a very different service to different people. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah.
So I'd say
Okay.
that was another really big part of helping to grow my course, is meeting the right people and putting myself in the position to meet more people who are like-minded, but maybe don't offer the same thing that I do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of standing out, because there are so many courses out there now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and you can just buy, and there's a lot of LinkedIn courses, these Udemy, and all of those. So how do you stand out from all of those? What tactics have really helped you in terms of differentiating?
Tactics that have helped me stand out.
Yeah.
I think where I start to stand out, my unique selling proposition comes back to who I am. Outside of sales, I am a solo traveler. So I've backpacked through 35 countries. I'm an avid free diver. So I've gotten down to 100 feet or 33 meters below the surface. I think that's also where I stand out, is I still have a life that fulfills me. I am still doing the things that light me up. And so, anyone can be a sales trainer, but not everyone is someone who free dives or travels the world on her own and goes and photographs lion prides and camps out in the middle of this, of these national parks without a fence. And I think that I still bring a lot of the same principles into my lifestyle. So by sharing, I found that on LinkedIn, for instance, when I share about my diving, when I share about my going out on safaris and spending time out in the bush, people respond a lot to that because it's different. So embracing your individuality is also part of being an effective messenger.
So what's your longest breath hold?
4 minutes and 3 seconds.
Oh, that's a lot. Okay. So how does that sort of like impact the professional and personal life? How do you bring that in?
Yeah, great question. So I personally believe personal development when I personally grow, my sales grow. When I grow myself, the results grow too. And so when I was training, free diving, you get uncomfortable. It's a lot. It's really psychological, because when you are at 33 meters below the surface, it's silence, and it's just you in your head and the voice within yourself. And so I would say there's a lot of self-coaching practice that I'm able to have there in that space, where I'm telling myself, stay calm. Okay, now go on ahead and you can surface and just kick gently. There's a lot of self-coaching happening. Just like another thing I do is I take ice baths. So I'll do a cold shower almost every single morning, because it's some level of resistance. So I hope that answers the question, but essentially these personal things that I do, the free diving, the breath holds, the photography, it all faces some level of resistance, much like someone who has to go to the gym and exercise. Every person every morning has a voice of resistance. Some people call it the ego. Eckhart Tolle, he calls it the ego, right? And other people call it the personality, whatever the case may be. But when you can master that voice, and you can overcome that voice that says, stop, don't do it, it hurts, you don't quit, it's uncomfortable, that is where the growth happens. And that same practice in sales and in business is a contributing factor to success, is being able to say, go for it and ask them, put out that bold proposition, see if this is a good fit for them. Right? So I would say that that's how it parallels, is I'm constantly pushing myself personally. So it helps me to push myself in sales and go for that one last dial, one last outbound, one last speech.
Okay, and there's a lot of like self-doubt when it comes to entrepreneurship. I think there's a lot of like self-doubt, and obviously if you say sales and all of that. So in terms of building confidence or regaining confidence, what are some of the tools, tactics that you use?
Yeah, so confidence comes from keeping your word to yourself, however big or small. Confidence comes from keeping your word to yourself. So the more opportunities you can give to yourself to live as aligned to that internal voice, the more you're going to be confident. The more times you can honor that commitment that you make to yourself, the more you're going to have confidence. Jen Gottlieb talks about a principle she created called the confidence continuum. And so let's say, for instance, I told myself last night, okay, when I wake up, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and then I'm going to go and work out. Every time I keep my commitment, it's a coin in the confidence bank. It says, okay, I can keep my word to myself. And every time I work out and I say I'm going to, and it's a coin, and it's a that is how confidence is built. There is no other way to build confidence except for doing something you say you're going to do, and doing it to the best of your ability, not not doing it 50%, but doing it as best as you possibly can.
Okay, that's awesome. So, so I think we're just coming towards the close. So, in terms of somebody has to become better for sales and obviously in life in general, what are some of the top 3 books that you would recommend that they should read and that would definitely help them?
Oh gosh, I've got a whole book list, Saad. How
Okay,
can you?
so let's just share all of them.
There's a link for this. I can give you a whole list.
Yeah.
No, there are a few books I think that have been really helpful. One of my personal favorites is by Nejwa Zabian. She wrote the book Welcome Home, and that's all about a relationship with yourself. So I really love that book. What's another self-development book that's been? Take the Stairs by Rory Vaden talks about self-discipline, and the principles in that book come from all that door knocking. He and I both did the same door knocking program, so I highly recommend Take the Stairs. And what's another? There's so many. It's hard to choose. I'd say The Power of Now. I'll give you 4. The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and The Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov.
Okay. And the last one, why was that so important?
Seat of the Soul by Gary Zukov.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it talks a lot about integrity, and it talks about how anything starts in business, in life, in everything that you do. Before there is a goal, before there is an objective, there is an intention. And so what is your intention when you're making the outbound? What is your intention with this meeting? What is your intention whenever you do anything? There's always an intention for why we do things. And when you get really clear on that intention, right? Is it that you want to show off to your friends and make all this money because you want to appear to be successful, right? Like that's going to drive your behavior and how you show up. Or is it that, no, I know I'm sincerely here to just help people. And when I showed up like that person who was there to help, that was the reason my sales grew so much. And I remember my best sales season, it was because my intention was it was just so unfazed. It was so true. My intention was so true and authentic and honest. And it was that I was simply there to help people versus trying to make all this money. And so the seed of the soul, it brings you to what is your intention. So
Okay, that's awesome. I guess this is the first one I'm reading. So, in terms of sales tactics and sales strategies, so which books, which is very, very sales specific, that you've read
sure.
and you really admired that, you want to share those?
Like sales books, sales
Yeah,
training books.
yeah, sales training.
Oh gosh. I would have to say the greatest salesman in the world is a great one. Ogmandino, the greatest salesman in the world. I'd say that's going to be a good one. Technical, even more technical than that. I'll have to get back to you. I'll have to email you a proper list because
Okay.
it's hard for me to rattle off. But yeah, I'd say if there's any sales book to start with the greatest salesman in the world by Ogmandino.
Augmenting. Okay, awesome, awesome. So, where can people find you and then learn more about your work? If you just want to share.
Yeah, honestly, right now, LinkedIn is the best place. I'm about to do an overhaul on my website, which I'm very excited about. So
Okay.
stay tuned for that. But you
Mhm.
can always email me at amber@amberlethem.com, my first name,
Mhm.
my first and last name. And yeah, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. That's going to be the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Okay, okay, okay. So that's awesome. Anything that I've missed, that you want to add, please?
Man, there's nothing that you've missed. I'd say if there's anything I'd leave any person with, it's that give yourself the grace and the patience to fail forward as often as you can. Give every outbound, every time you go for a sales call, give it your best. Be gracious with yourself when you mess up, and just keep going. You will get better. So yeah.
Okay. Oh wow, wow. That's an awesome to end the conversation. Wow, that's awesome. Okay,
Thank you.
so I truly enjoyed our conversation. So, and I really appreciate your time and effort. Obviously, you came to this and agreed to doing this. So I'm very, very grateful, and thanks a lot for your time. Okay, have a nice day, Amber. All right, take
Thank
care.
you, Sad. You
You
too.
too.
Bye.